Am I becoming a Christian? Video by Alex O'Connor. Now listen. Alex O'Connor is one of the most prominent voices in the atheist spaces on YouTube. I don't even know if based on this title, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but what? Am I becoming a Christian? That'd be crazy. So let's go ahead and check this out, man, see what's going on.
Right, can everybody just like chill out a little bit, please? Alex O'Connor just admitted it. Christianity might actually be true. He debated Christians for years, then admitted this about Jesus. Did Alex O'Connor convert to Christianity? Alex O'Connor is no longer an atheist? Alex O'Connor, no longer an atheist. Here's why. Wow. Alex O'Connor, no longer an atheist.
I ain't gonna lie, but these, Alex, you ain't need to include these. This one got 32 views. But okay, a lot of people.
Okay, so what happened? Something super significant must have gone down to cause all of this ruckus. Well, I'll tell you. I recently had a conversation with Bear Grylls in which he asked me where my study of Christianity and theology has led me. And I told him, wait for it, that I think Christianity is more plausibly true than the new atheists do and than I did when I was a teenager. Can you believe it?
But you've had such a journey and you've met so many amazing people and you've debated so many different angles and things. Yeah. Where's it led you to?
It's led me to, well, I used to be quite on board with the new atheism stuff. I've spoken about this a lot on my show.
What does that mean?
You know, like the sort of Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens.
Right.
It was really popular. They
were kind of dicks. You know, they took their atheism to a level of being fucking dickheads that it was like they were rage baiting Christians on a weekly basis. That was the new atheist movement. They were just being very disrespectful.
That they were doing. They called it new atheism.
Yeah.
And it was this body of like atheist thought with the God delusion, this kind of stuff, which was really popular. And it had this sort of quite strident, debate me, bro, kind of attitude.
You were dicks. I get it. You were dicks.
Dude. And I was really swept up by that. I thought it was really exciting and cool. And I was beginning to sort of shake that off and grow up a bit, essentially. And then running the podcast, what I've realized is that this is far more interesting and intricate, and I would say plausible than I'd given it credit for before. So, I'm still not a Christian. Not true, not even plausible, but just more plausible.
More plausible, exactly. Yeah. These Christian YouTubers, they ain't no different than you and me. They ain't no different than me, man. They love the gossip, the drama. You know what I'm saying? They love it, man.
When I was a teenager. And it was actually a clip of this moment which went out on my second YouTube channel that caused all of these responses. I mean, can you believe it? A non-believer in God, like me, is willing to attribute more plausibility to Christianity than someone like Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens, or indeed his own teenage self. Can you believe it? I mean, I can't think of a single explanation as to why that would be the case, except that he's secretly on the verge of some kind of grand conversion. No, he's too clever for that. He would never become a Christian. It must be that he's realized Christianity is cool again, and he wants to capitalize on an increased viewership by leaning into Christianity.
Christianity is not cool again, bro.
By making a whole lot more money. Okay, so here's what really happened. If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you'll know that I'm quite a staunch critic of Christianity and religion and theism in general. And when I was like 17 or 18 and I started making videos, I was a lot more forthright with that atheism. I thought that atheism wasn't just...
I think there are two things that are resulting in maybe a resurgence, and I don't think it's big, but there are two things that I think are resulting in people being more into religion now, because when I was in high school, when I was in college, you didn't really hear anybody talking about being religious, bro. Like, I went to high school in Florida, right? Nobody talked about Jesus, bro. You just didn't see it. But I think we're seeing a bit more of it now. And I think a lot of that is being fueled by Christian nationalism. A lot of it is being fueled by white supremacy. Those two things are going together. But we do see we are in an age now where people feel more disconnected than ever before. Nobody is going outside anymore. You used to be able to go outside and it will just always be people outside, bro. Now everybody's locked in the house. People are having less kids. so people have less siblings, you know, and they're just on their phone. They want community. But I think a lot of the Christian hoopla we're seeing today is really just Trump is my president, Jesus is my king type Christians. We're seeing a resurgence of that.
True, but beneficial for
But that shit ain't gonna last. That ain't gonna last.
society. I thought that religion was harmful. I was really in line with the new atheists like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, who influenced me greatly into a position that religion is just this utterly irrational and evil force in the world.
Sure.
In the past decade, I've come to see this as something of a shallow view. I think it depends on the religious tradition, because they're quite different.
See, here's the difference. So I think there is legitimacy in spirituality, and no, I don't believe you have to only subscribe to my version of spirituality. I do believe that there are Christians, there are Muslims, there are Jews, there are Buddhists, there are people who are subscribed to those religions and even believe the story and the narratives that are attached to those religions, but are actually actively still operating with a degree of what I would consider true spirituality. And what do I mean by spirituality? If you're a spiritual person, all it means is that you believe that the intangible has an effect on the tangible, right? All it means is you believe that your physical world and the things that you experience are influenced by your thoughts and your emotions. And when you think about it, that's all that is, right? When a Christian says, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus, they are really saying, I'm not going to give you any of my energy. I'm not going to give you any of my attention. I'm not going to allow this thing to affect me internally. In my opinion, that is true spirituality. True spirituality is not adhering to, rules and regulations and putting 10% in the offering plate. However, if you believe that by having a state of abundance and being a generous person, because God blesses you, and so when you give, you have this confidence that God is going to bless me. You don't see it as an investment like you're investing in stocks. You don't see it as an exchange system like, okay, if I give this much of my money, then God is going to. No, it's like a genuine internal sense of I am a child of God. God loves me. God blesses me heavily. And so I give freely because I have nothing to worry about. That, in my opinion, is true spirituality. And so you can be a Christian, a Muslim, and be what I would consider a spiritual person. Now, the unfortunate thing is, even though we are really similar in a lot of ways in the way we think, because you're religious, you have to disqualify my spirituality. You know what I'm saying? Even though we might be approaching a lot of things in the same way. And that's just the unfortunate thing about religion. But here's the thing. I think most religious people are not spiritual. That's the problem. Most religious people are not spiritual. They're just in a cult. They're not actually operating in that metaphysical plane where they're like the thoughts that I have, the emotions that I have, these things influence how my life plays out, right? They're following a set of rules because they think God is like Santa Claus and he has a naughty and nice list and he's just making sure that the nice outweighs the naughty list. Of course, there are different versions of Christian theology. There are some people who believe that, as long as you believed in Jesus, that he died and paid for your sins once and for all, and you put your faith in that, well, you're saved forever, which I did, by the way. So even though I blaspheme and I completely reject the religion of Christianity and I do not believe in the story of all the stories in the Bible as if they literally happened exactly as they are written, I should still go to heaven if that doctrine is true, which is funny. But most other Christians believe that the way you live your life will actually impact whether or not God lets you into heaven. And so those religious people, they're operating strictly in the physical. They believe that the decisions that they make and the actions that they take, that is the starting point in regards to influencing the experiences that they have and the way life unfolds for them. Whereas a truly spiritual person understands that the true starting place of influencing the way your life unfolds begins in the mind, in the heart, in the soul, however you want to describe it.
I think it depends on the time in history. I think it depends on the cultural context. And yeah, of course, any historian or sociologist will tell you that it's never as straightforward as I think the new atheists made it out to be. But also on the point of God's, existence, I also think that the new atheists didn't really give enough credence to some of the arguments for the existence of God. Richard Dawkins, for example, in The God Delusion, spends 2 pages on Thomas Aquinas's famous 5 ways. 2 pages. And I think in a way that doesn't properly deal with the significance of the arguments that Aquinas was putting forward. Now look, I still don't believe in God, okay? Like, I just don't think that it's true. But what I will say is that when I was 17 or 18 and I was swept up with this kind of material, I thought that all of the arguments for God's existence were complete nonsense and that all the arguments against...
Now, I believe in God. I do not believe in a character. I do not believe in a person that is, like I said, keeping a list in the book of life, sending angels and demons off on errands and shit like that. You know what I'm saying? Fucking kicking back and watching the world unfold with Jesus sitting beside him. He's like, hey, Jesus, grab me fucking some shit from the fridge type shit. You know what I'm saying? Do they drink and eat in heaven? According to the Bible, they do. Where are you going to keep it? Heaven fridge, obviously. And so, yeah, I don't believe in that. But I do believe that there is definitely something very just incomprehensible that is occurring. The fact that we exist, every time I think about that, it's fucking insane. What the fuck even is this? What is going on? All right, I don't want to trigger an existential crisis for you. Let's keep it pushing.
God's existence were an epitome of perfect rationality. I've now come to prefer the term agnostic over atheist. I mean, it's a problem in itself, even trying to define what God is and what God would look like. But I think there are good reasons to believe in God. I also think there are very good reasons to not believe in God. And some of you might be thinking, what, like good reasons to believe in God? What are you talking about?
Now, the reason I believe or subscribe to the spirituality that I subscribe to is because it fucking works. That's it. It's not faith-based at all. It's mechanical. It's like going to the gym. If this shit didn't work, then I wouldn't fucking do it. You know what I'm saying? But this shit has completely changed my life in every possible way. Literally every aspect of my life is amazing, bro. It's not perfect. Nothing in life is perfect. But I'm happy every single day. I'm excited to live life every single day. And I feel very confident about the future. I fear nothing. I literally live my life without fear. Even if something completely terrible were to happen to me. Like, you know what I'm saying, fucking Trump starts another civil war and I get detained, but like the Gestapo shows up to my door and drags me off into the car. I literally wouldn't even be like worried about it, bro. Because I understand that my mindset is everything. And that's essentially what Paul was talking about, right? When he was in prison, he's like, I could be in a mansion, I could be in prison, I'm Gucci. I know God got me. The crazy thing is I never had that when I was a Christian. You know what I'm saying? I never had that when I was a Christian. But like I'm saying, I'm not saying that you can't have it as a Christian. I believe there are some Christians that get it like that. These are the Christians that talk about having a simple faith. And I can appreciate that, but I just can't subscribe to the religion, bro. I can't subscribe to the religion. I do not believe that Jesus died on a cross and went and fucking rose from the dead. I don't believe that happened. I believe Jesus is like a metaphor. You know what I'm saying? I don't even believe necessarily most of the stories in the Bible actually happen. You know, as far as I'm concerned, most of it is fictional, written by people who were spiritual, who understood but couched these spiritual lessons in stories that made it easy to consume and understand. And then over time, people manipulated them and put more shit in the writings, right, to formulate a Bible so that they could have a religion, so that they could control and fucking, you know what I'm saying, extract resources from the group.
I don't mean like conclusive reasons. I don't mean that I have like an argument which should compel a rational person to say that God exists. I just mean that there are like compelling considerations. And look, I don't really want to go into them now, and I don't have time exactly, but that's not even the point, because all this video is a clip from a podcast in which, by the way, Bear Grylls just like asks me, where has this led you? And I say, like, what, since the beginning of my career? I mean, I think it's more plausible than I did when I was a teenager. That's it. That's not like an extraordinary thing to say. I mean, if you were listening to a Christian who started out when they were 17 on YouTube talking about like why Christianity is definitely true, and someone asked them 10 years later where their exploration of philosophy had led them, and they said something like, I've got to say, like, atheism has a lot more going for it than I thought when I started when I was 17. It posed a much sort of bigger challenge. I think there were lots of interesting considerations, the problem of evil and divine hiddenness. There are really robust philosophical versions of this. They might say, as someone who's a Christian, I've realized that atheism is much more plausible than I thought when I was a teenager. And similarly, it shouldn't be that surprising to hear an atheist who has for the past 10 years dedicated his life to studying philosophy and theology say that, there are some pretty good arguments on the other side. The thing that really annoys me is that there are like two kinds of responses to this video that I've been getting that I don't like.
Okay.
One is from the Christian community who say, aha, I knew it. He's on the verge of conversion. He's definitely about to become a Christian, and we're just waiting for Jesus to fully open his eyes or something.
Yeah, that's the thing though, and that's the religious part. Anybody who has that kind of energy, that they're a religious person. That is not spirituality. That is religious. Why? Because it reveals that their faith is strengthened when they see other people believe in it. And their faith might be rocked or weakened when they see other people leave it. What does that tell you? It tells you that their faith is not actually grounded in their own internal connection with their God, right? So much of what they believe is contingent on other people believing it. Bro, it's just me, myself, and I with my spirituality. I have like one friend who is into this shit to the same degree that I'm into it. That's my boy Nero Knowledge on YouTube. Go check him out. He actually talks about this shit in depth at a very high level. And so if you want to understand how I view the world and how I believe metaphysics interacts with Newtonian physics, go ahead and check that out. That's Nero Knowledge on YouTube. But besides him, bro, like, I don't talk to nobody about this shit. You know what I'm saying? My wife, I'll speak with, like, we're on the same kind of mindset where that's concerned. And she's also seen amazing improvements in her life and quality of life and happiness as well. But we're not like talking. It's not like religious. We're not like talking about it. We're not like, okay, let's get together and study and think about it. And nah, it's just a way of living. It's a way of thinking. It's understanding that your mindset and the emotions you allow yourself to dwell within, they determine everything. But with religion, because it's a cult, the cult members feel stronger the more people that join. And when people leave, they get angry. Obviously, I can't speak for all Christians and Muslims and religious people, but they're very triggered when you're like, I don't think this shit really working. I don't think this shit is for me. And unlike a religious person, I tell you, like, this is my approach. And I also have a spiritual channel where I explain all of this shit as well in depth. It's linked in the description of every single one of my videos. If you actually go back and check, I've said everything that needs to be said. If you want more, like I said, go check out my boy Nero Knowledge's channel. Every single person could tell me that this shit is bullshit and it doesn't work, and it wouldn't affect me at all. Why? For the same reason you could tell me that lifting weights doesn't build muscle. I'd be like, okay, if you say so. How's not lifting weights working out for your physique? You feel strong, right? And so to me, it's like you're broke, you're sick, you can't get a girl, you hate your job, but you gonna tell me about spirituality and my life is going amazing. Okay, all right, sure.
Like that. The second is from atheist listeners who think that I've essentially lost my mind. And that also tends to come along with this idea that I'm grifting, right? That I'm kind of trying to cotton onto a trend and, I don't know, make more money off like pretending to be nearly a Christian or something.
Right.
Alex sees that there is a massive fascistic turn happening and is now becoming Christian to save his own skin. Cowardly. What a fraud. Just fast forward to your inevitable coming to Jesus moment and stop wasting people's time.
Wow.
You can pivot your channel's content to Atheist converts to Christianity and realizes how wrong he was all along. The Bible thumpers
This is the thing, though, with atheism, bro. The atheist space, I was never in that, bro. You know what I'm saying? Atheists help me to deconstruct a lot because they know their shit. But even within atheism itself, they low-key kind of move like a cult sometimes too, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I'm over here just fucking spiritual, nigga, just moving.
Eat it up. Sad to see stupidity prevail over logic and intelligence.
Right.
Sad atheist grift failed. Time to jump on the megachurch conversion Christian tour.
God
It's sad and pathetic to watch someone who was once respectable turn into a complete grifter. So how much did the
but here's the thing. I can see an atheist becoming a Christian. I could never see someone who believes the shit I believe becoming a Christian, bro. I can't. Because I feel like I got all the meat. I feel like I got all the meat, the spiritual meat that there is. I love the Bible, bro. Y'all know I quote the Bible all the time. There's a lot of spiritual truth in there, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of real shit in the Bible. But niggas be fucking missing the point is the problem.
Bobby pay you? Alex is quasi-famous now.
So I don't need to put back on the fucking religious bullshit. I got the spiritual shit. But at least now I don't gotta be a bigot. Nor do I have to hate Muslims. Bro, before I became a Christian, bro, one of my best friends is Muslim, bro. I've always fucked with Muslims heavy. And then I became a Christian, and then fucking, it became like this war between me and Muslims. And I was like, these people serve Satan. They serve Satan, you know, and now I can just be cool with everybody. You know what I'm saying? If you're a cool person, I don't care what you believe, we can be cool. And I mean everybody, bro. Everybody, from a Christian to a Muslim to a gay person to a trans person to an atheist, just be a decent person and we can be cool. And the beautiful thing about my version of spirituality is you can be a Muslim and still do it. You can be a Christian and still do it. It does not require you to like do anything specific, right? It doesn't require you to obey any specific rules. It's all a mindset thing.
Actually, that one's fair enough. Oh dear, now old Alex has fallen too. Only Dawkins left. I'm sorry, but fallen from what? From the kind of steadfast atheism which says that there is literally no such thing as a plausible argument for religion or Christianity. That there's not like one marginally good reason to think that religion or Christianity might be true. If that's your position, we're just not on the same page. But that is not the same thing as becoming a Christian or being on the verge of doing so. And to prove it, I just want to show you something. So this video was taken from my second YouTube channel, More Alex O'Connor, and I just want to show you some other YouTube video titles from that self-same YouTube channel. Debating why the Bible isn't true versus Dinesh D'Souza.
2 weeks ago.
Was Jesus the serpent in the Garden of Eden? Pressing Ben Shapiro on contradictions in Scripture. Why contradictions in the Bible matter. And across my content, I've got videos explaining why I think Jesus didn't claim to be God.
Where Jesus is specifically asked to clarify his relationship to the Father and tells us that he is only in relationship with him in such a way that everybody else can be in relationship with them.
So Alex is addressing the cult-like atheists now. You see, it's two sides of the same coin. Because much like a Christian, if you're a Christian but you say, I think Muslims are going to heaven too, that ain't enough. You ain't going far enough. You're not even a real Christian. And it's the same thing with these atheists. If you acknowledge that there might be, like, God might be real, spirituality might be a thing, Christianity is maybe even plausible, but you still are like, but I don't believe in that shit though. And I think, you know what I'm saying, the atheist or agnostic position is far more likely. The naturalistic position is far more probable. That ain't enough for some of these atheists. They want you to say without a shadow of a doubt, there is nothing there. All that exists is fucking skin and bones, and this is all there is. This is all there is. If you don't go that far, now you're not atheist enough. So it's a cult, bro. Just like the fanatical religious people.
Why the problem of evil is the biggest problem for Christianity.
I don't think I'd expect to see anything like this circus of
suffering. How the Bible obviously contains falsehoods and mythologies and often contradicts itself. Every contradiction? All of them? How about, for instance, how I think the Bible promotes sexism. If there is something they want to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in church. And slavery.
The scriptural injunctions towards the ownership of other human beings as private property, the bequeathing of them to your children as inheritable property, and the differential treatment of slaves who are Israelites and slaves who are not.
And genocide.
I get sick to death of people hand-waving away this genocide by some vague reference to the fact that Jesus came along to do something which somehow kind of undoes the immorality of it.
And so, in the face of all of that, one clip in which I say, yeah, Christianity has got something going for it, and it's got more going for it than I realized when I was a teenager.
Sure.
Causes like this kind of reaction. And I think that some of the responses I've been getting to this,
a lot of your audience never outgrew the angry atheist phase, bro. That's really what it. I understand it. I understand, especially if you have religious trauma and you experience some fucked up shit as a result of being in that space. I can see why you become the angry atheist or the angry agnostic. You know what I'm saying? But you got to outgrow that shit, man, because that doesn't serve you.
Right? Because if you just saying that the other side, so to speak, is maybe more plausible than some people give it credit for. And actually, there are some good reasons to disagree with my position. I still believe what I believe, but I think there are good reasons that I have to tackle on the other side. If just saying that is enough to get accusations that you either must be on the brink of a conversion or you're like outwardly grifting to the other side, what does that say about the state of our ability online to have conversations about important topics? I think that the starting point of an interesting conversation should be, I think that what you're saying is really interesting and plausible, but I disagree with it, and I'm going to tell you why. If our starting point is just
it's a very mature posture.
Nothing you could possibly say that will rationally convince me, because your position is rationally indefensible. Not only that, but it's also evil and a terrible force in the world. And right now, I just don't think there is anything you could possibly say to me at all to convince me that your worldview is even more plausible than its fiercest enemies propose. If that's where you're at, then fair enough. You can hold that view. I can understand looking at religions like Christianity, or for a Christian looking at atheism and just thinking that is nonsense and there is no way I can even take that seriously. Fine, you can do that, but that's not what I'm engaged in. I'm trying to have interesting conversations with people because I think that most people have something interesting to say. But I also kind of can't blame people for thinking that I am jumping on some Christian grift, because Christians keep repurposing my material.
It's so fucking gross, bro. It's so fucking gross.
They're hopeful worship music in the background, Instagram reels talking about how great Jesus is. Sometimes when I'm asked about Christianity or religion on a podcast or something, my co-conversationalist doesn't know that much about Christianity, or is interested but hasn't really cared about it, or is someone who is a fervent atheist. And in any of those situations, it will serve the conversation quite well for me to try to steel man Christianity, for me to say, well, hold on a second, I think there are good reasons to believe in God. And it does make sense why a Christian would be convinced that Jesus rose from the dead. Here are some of the arguments. How do we explain the fact that this man gets crucified by the Romans, and then people claim to see him after he died, and were willing to be put to death for that belief? Isn't that incredible? How do we explain this? Something really weird must have happened. And then they will always ask me, so hold on then, what's your explanation? And I go, there is still enough disagreement that I think to arouse suspicion. I'm saying this as if I'm some kind of Christian or theist. I sort of put on that hat when I'm asked to have a conversation of this kind. It does seem to me suspicious, for example, that the Gospel of Mark, which is the earliest gospel, contains no post-resurrection appearances. And then the Gospel of Matthew does include post-resurrection appearances. The Gospel of Luke includes even more. It's only in the Gospel of John that we get, for instance, doubting Thomas. So I think that there's this reason to distrust the Gospel accounts, or there's mythological development if you look at the earliest Gospel, Mark, and then look at the latest John and see how things change. And I start talking about those more atheistic points. But somebody always, inevitably, without fail, takes that first bit, clips it up, makes it black and white, puts some hopeful music in the background, and puts it onto some Jesus Instagram page. How do we explain the fact that this man gets crucified by the Romans, and then people claim to see him after he died. And just to show you how bad and dishonest this can get, let me show you one of the most popular reels of this kind. 45,000 likes.
Wow.
The caption is, Jesus' genius moment. #God, #Jesus, #Christianity, #For You page. So let's take a look at this. Probably, well, it's one of my favorite stories in the Gospels, where Jesus says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. Because it's a religious test, because you've got this Jesus, peaceful figure, and there's a woman who's committed adultery, and the law's quite clear that the woman should be stoned.
Right.
And Jesus is just like writing in the sand, and the Pharisees are like, okay, come on then, Jesus, what are you going to do here? It clearly says that she should be stoned. That's what the law says. And he's like writing in the sand. He's kind of ignoring them. And they say, Jesus, what should we do here? The law's quite clear. We need to stone this woman. And they're testing him. What's he going to do? And he says,
I think that this is Jesus condemning religiosity. I think this is Jesus saying, listen, man, these rules that are in place of how you should punish people because they broke some kind of rule. He's saying that shit is bullshit. That's missing the point. He's not, but he doesn't consent to adultery at the same time, right? He still then tells the woman, go and sin no more. Why? Because he's acknowledging, look, man, this is all internal, right? What is going on with you internally? Why it is that you feel compelled to cheat on your husband, right? Why is it? What is going on with you internally? Whatever it is, it's fucking you up. It's fucking up your life. And that's why bad shit keeps happening to you. But the Pharisees, who are religious, but not spiritual, they just care about controlling people. They just care. And that's why they're cruel. And that's why I don't believe any of these Christian nationalists even begin to understand spirituality. They're all just religious as fuck. They're in a cult, and they're cruel, and they're mean, right? This is the test of how religious you are. How cruel are you, right? Do you relish in the idea of someone who disagreed with you dying and going to hell? Do you like the idea of God punishing people for not following the rules? Do you feel better than people because you're an obedient Christian? That to me is all, those are all signs that you religious as fuck and don't got no spirituality in you.
sure, yeah, okay, go ahead. But he who's without sin casts the first stone.
Right.
It's brilliant. It's awesome. It's like ethical genius. It sort of undercuts at the same time as not contradicting the truth of the law or the justice. It's this brilliant moment. It's this brilliant moment. Yeah, that does sound pretty pro-Christianity, doesn't
Right.
it? And look at some of the comments. Bro's starting to get it. He's so close. Times like 15. Okay,
Right.
You want to see something funny? Let's look at where that clip was taken from and listen to the very next words out of my mouth. It's this brilliant moment, but unfortunately, it's not in our earliest manuscripts, and so most scholars believe that it's a later interpolation. But unfortunately, it's not in our earliest manuscripts.
There is that as well. There is that as well. That story ain't even a real story. But it makes no difference to me because I don't think any of them are real stories, per se. You know what I'm saying?
Manuscripts, and so most scholars believe it's a later interpolation. That is to say that our earliest manuscripts of John's Gospel, the only Gospel in which
Whoever put that shit in there, that was a spiritual person. That was a truly spiritual person.
find this story today.
But then again, maybe they were also just trying to undermine the Torah, right? Maybe they were just trying to undermine the Jewish rules and regulations, right? Fuck the Sabbath, fuck all of that shit, fuck the Jewish laws, stoning people to death. We're not doing none of that shit. Could be that as well. Who knows?
They don't contain this story, indicating that at some point it was added in later. It wasn't a part of the original gospel. I mean, look, to make this really clear, let's go back for a moment and look at what Chris actually asked me. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe that was, a later interpolation, because the Quran is the word of God.
What's an interpolation?
Oh, like a later edition.
Okay.
So something that's added later into the text. So like earlier I mentioned the stoning of the adulterous woman, which is it's one of my favorite stories in the Gospels. And that's where the reel starts.
Right,
So Chris has
yeah.
asked me, what's an
They're deceptive. This is how you know this is a cult, that they're willing to lie and manipulate video footage from a popular atheist to try and strengthen the faith of their fellow cult members. It's actually sick. It's actually propaganda. It's literally just propaganda, bro. It's foul.
interpolation. I say, well, it's when someone has kind of taken a text and like sneakily added in something later that isn't historical. Then I start explaining this story. That's where the reel starts. Then the reel ends. Immediately after which, I say, it's this brilliant moment, but unfortunately, it's not in our earliest manuscripts.
Look at that. They cut that shit out. Demons, bro. Devils and demons.
Most scholars believe that it's a later interpolation. So in this moment on Chris Williamson's podcast, I'm arguing for the unreliability of the gospel narrative. And someone has chopped off the context either side, made it black and white, put some fancy music behind it, and is now trying to pass it off as a kind of pro-Jesus piece of content.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying, this is my favorite story in the Gospels, and I think Jesus is so cool here, is to point out that some of my favorite parts about who Jesus is aren't historical. They're not really part of the original gospel narrative. And you know what's really annoying about this? Because these are literally the next words out of my mouth, whoever edited this reel knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
They fully knew the point that I was trying to make. They had listened through and were waiting for a moment to pull, and they just knew that I was arguing here that this is not a historical story. And they've just taken it anyway and turned it into some Christian content. And I see these kinds of reels and TikToks all the time. People keep taking my material and turning it into pro-Christian content. I was asked what I would recommend a friend do if they were feeling depressed. And if I thought that reading the Bible would help my friend to stop being depressed, I'd tell them to read the Bible. If I thought that studying philosophy of mind would do that, I'd tell them to do that, because that's a totally different question to what I think is true. I mean, just type in Alex O'Connor Christianity into TikTok or Instagram or something.
If you were a Christian, bro, and in you practicing your Christianity, you feel light, you're at peace, you're joyful, life is going good for you. You know what I'm saying? It's just you're happy every day when you wake up, you're happy to be alive, you're excited to go through life. Then I would say you better fucking stay a Christian. Because I can also tell you without a shadow of a doubt that those Christians, they're not these dogmatic, cruel, bigoted people. Those are usually the very chill Christians. You know what I'm saying? They're very chill. It's the most religious Christians be the most unhappiest people, constantly wrought with guilt and shame, and they're angry constantly, and they can't wait for the rap. They hate life so much. Any Christian that is desperately wanting Jesus to come back tomorrow is evidence that your life fucking sucks. If you passed away in your sleep, if an angel came to you and told you, oh, you're going to die tonight, you'd be, oh, that's amazing, because finally this shitty life that I'm living as a devout Christian will be over, and I can go to heaven and stop trying because I'll just be perfect. But if you're actually enjoying life, you'd be bummed out, even if you believed in heaven and all that, because you're like, man, I'm enjoying life, and all these people in my life are going to be sad. And it's like, imagine if you were at a really fun party and you know the party is going to end eventually, but you're having a blast, but you know that someone is going to pick you up and take you on a vacation to Hawaii. Like, you want to go to Hawaii, but you're enjoying the party. And so you'd want to wait until the party ends whenever it ends. You wouldn't be in this rush to get out of there and hop on the plane and fly to Hawaii. Why? If that was the case, what does that tell you? The party fucking sucks.
And you will just see this endless list of videos which make it seem as though I'm some kind of Christian apologist. By the way, in all of these clips, I've replaced the backing music to something similar, but that's not going to get me a copyright strike. But just imagine No Surprises by Radiohead, or some famous Christian piano worship music. That's the stuff that's actually there. It's actually kind of annoying. It would be a bit like if a Christian, say John Lennox or somebody, were to sit for an interview and say, the first thing I want to say is that atheists need to be taken seriously. The problem of evil is a serious challenge, and I can understand why that would make someone doubt the existence of God. And then he goes on to say, but this is my answer. If somebody just like clipped that first bit where he says that the problem of evil is a really good reason not to believe in God, and they like uploaded it onto an atheist Instagram account and made it all black and white and put some dramatic music in the background and tried to like pass it off as if John Lennox was arguing for atheism.
Like he's on the verge of becoming an atheist, right?
I think that that would be, shall we say, a little bit unfair to him and unfair to the people
it's straight up lying. It's disingenuous, it's manipulative, it's evil is what it is. And these Christian YouTubers, they do it all the time.
Watching
these TikTok pages that do this shit, that's all they're doing.
Now think that John Lennox believes something that he doesn't. And I don't really mind it. It's the internet.
It's lying. And Paul says, right, no liar shall fucking go to heaven or some shit like that. Right? Right.
And certainly the next time you see me talking positively about Christianity and saying that it might be more plausible than the new atheists give it credit for, please do not read this as me being on the verge of a conversion, and certainly don't read it as me partaking in some kind of grift.
I think this is a great example of how to maturely conduct conversations about very deep and heavy topics that a lot of people care about. That's truly an admirable way to conduct yourself as a person in his position. But hey, y'all let me know what you think about everything we discussed in today's video in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace out.